Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm excited to have for you as a guest, Brady Foulk. And let me tell you about Brady. So Brady is a dedicated dog trainer with a passion for empowering puppies, dogs, and their owners to achieve greater success and harmony at their home and around town. With years of hands-on experience, he's honed his skills in canine behavior, obedience, emotional support, and service dog training. Brady firmly believes that a well-trained dog is a happy and confident dog, and his mission is to empower dog owners with the knowledge and tools to create a peaceful and loving home themselves. By reframing their perspective and embracing a proactive mindset, my audience, you all, are going to learn how to transform your role from mere pet owners to effective leaders in their canine relationships. So today we're going to talk about creative problem solving and dog training. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Brady Foulk. Hey, Brady.
Hey there. Thank you for having me. And I want your audience to know before we start, if you have a dog and you want them to listen a little bit better, you're in the right place. And if you don't have a dog and you're just learning and wanting to learn more about leadership, there's lots to break down and discover as well. So I'm happy to be here and share these insights, and I'm happy to share these with your guests.
Awesome. Well, we always start out with an easy question before we get into the meat of all this, and that is to just let everybody know, where do you call home? Where do you live?
Where I call home, that's San Diego, California.
Oh,
That's
very
like
nice.
my
Love
home.
San
That's where I
Diego.
was born and raised. I left a year and a half ago, and now I'm in Austin, Texas. So we're
Two
building
nice
a new home
places,
here.
though. Yeah,
Oh,
Austin's
yes.
great. Lots of good things to do in Austin.
Lots of dogs, lots of people, lots of events. It's South by Southwest this weekend. So
Oh, nice.
if you're out there, you may see me.
So how did you get started in dog training? I always like to try to understand the journey that you took. Not always is it right out of school did we do what we're doing. We take a few different paths. So talk to us a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, it definitely was not a straight path. It was back and forth, but I hit my destination at this point in time. I'm the oldest of six, so I grew up in a big family, and we grew up with lots of animals. We grew up on 13 acres. There was lots of places for the dogs to explore. And these guys, they were more like wild animals than anything. They wouldn't poop or pee inside the house, but they would like get into the trash can and they would be gone for hours. And yeah, that was my experience with dogs. And I always remember thinking, like, when I have my own dog, like, I want this dog to love me, to not want to run away from me, to not get into the trash. And when I was 22, I got my first puppy, and I was working my first 9-to-5 job. I was at an insurance company, but before that, I had worked at In-N-Out and Tiffany & Co. and Amazon and Apple. So I had done all of that prior to this, but I got my first 9-to-5. I was making more money, and I was like, this is a great time to get a dog. All my coworkers and my bosses, it was a small company, they're like, don't do it, right? Like, they liked hanging out and going out after work. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it, because you tell me don't do something, I'm the type of person who's going to do it, I don't know if you're like
Challenge
that, but
accepted.
So I did. I got an Australian Shepherd. I named him
Oh.
Bumblebee, and his butt wiggles so fast. He doesn't have a tail, but he moves, man. And I'm an active guy too, so I like to do jujitsu and running, and like I like to get out and surfing, and so we'd be out and about all the time. And I gave him a bunch of love. He slept in my bed, got him all the best toys, the best food, the best treats. And I remember like 6 months into it, my friends asked me to go hang out, and I was like, okay, like let's go. Um, I couldn't leave him in his crate because he still hated his crate and he would bark. And we were in an apartment by the beach, and so I just left him in my room. And I went and hung out with my friends, and I came back like an hour and a half, 2 hours later. And the first thing that hit me was the smell. And I was like, something's wrong. And like I opened the door, and sure enough, there's like 4 piles of poop and there's pee. And the next thing I notice is like there's a chunk of the carpet's missing. I'm like, well, there's $1,000 in my deposit. Like I gotta like pay. And my dad's Father's Day present, I bought him this nice leather duffel bag, and he got into a box inside a box inside a box to get to this leather duffel bag, which makes sense. He's a dog. He likes leather. And I was like, I didn't think about that before. And then my Tools of Titans, Tim Ferriss book, he ripped out the first 30 pages of my new book. And I was like, you couldn't pick the old book? And I'm like looking at this, and that was my rock bottom. That was where I was like, I have to do something different because this isn't working. So I don't know if anyone else here is already with their dog like that, or like maybe it's headed that way, but yeah, I hit that point. I was done. So I was actually on listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast. He was interviewing Susan Garrett, and she's a 30-time world agility champion. And she's done this with not just one dog, but with multiple dogs. So it's like, okay, you're not just didn't get just blessed with a good dog. Like you've done this consistently. So I did some more research and started diving into her programs, and I gave her thousands of dollars to help train me to like cut time in half, right? I needed to learn how to teach my dog how to come when called, how to do crate training, how to do some cool tricks around the house, and just to enjoy listening to me instead of having to bribe him with treats all the time.
Yeah.
So I jumped into those programs, and it went really well. And as it started going well, like he started coming when called. He loves his crate. He can sit pretty. He can even get me a drink out of the fridge, so he can open up the fridge now, grab me a water bottle, bring it to me, and then go shut the fridge for me because we don't live in a barn, you know? And so we've done so much. I've even taught a potbelly pig how to paint at a nonprofit called Farm Animal Refuge in San Diego, and she's raised over $10,000 selling her paintings in auctions that the farm holds. So all animals can learn. I have 2 guinea pigs too, and I do some little training with them. So it's very important that these methods are universal, as well as our leadership principles, because we want to be able to influence anyone and everyone. When with being a force for good at the end of the day. So what I'm doing now is I'm in Austin, Texas. So I help people find their dream dog, and to get there by finding out what exactly they want, because everyone has a kind of a different idea of what that looks like. And then I help get them there, and we cut time in half. So that's what I'm currently doing out here.
Awesome. Yes, I have multiple stories like that one. But you know, my last dog, who sadly passed away, was I got her as a foster and it was a boxer pit bull, and brindle, and she was a year when we got her. The owners had an apartment, and the dog was too big for the apartment. So the owner of the apartment complex said they had to either move or get rid of the dog, and they chose to get rid of the dog. I would have moved so fast. But anyway, so good for me, because her name was Shadow, and she was the best dog ever.
Got it. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think each dog is given to us for a reason. So it found you, and you're able to learn the lessons, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. So what methods do you use for dog training? And you know, we all know maybe they've taken their dogs to PetSmart or Petco for doggy puppy training or whatnot, or maybe their neighbors told them what to do, how things would work. But what do you do that might be unique, and most importantly, effective?
Yeah, let me share a short story about some of the ways you can train, and then I'll dive into specifically what I do and how you can use this to teach your dog some new tricks. So I believe being a leader means more than just getting results. I watched on camera as one of my old roommates kicked and punched my first dog, Bumblebee. And man, did it light a fire inside of me. He went back to going into doing the dishes, and he didn't know I was in the apartment because I pretended like I left. And I don't know how long this was going for, but it was going to end today. And so I went in, I grabbed him, I threw him to the ground. We wrestled around for a bit, and I called the police. And at the end of the day, he said that I had him on video, but he said he was acting in self-defense, even though Bumblebee was like in a corner of on the ground. And the police said, you know, we can't do anything else. And they let him go. And he's like, you should find a new roommate. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. We're done. It was insane. So being a leader means more than just getting results. You can lead in three ways. You can use pain and intimidation. You can use bribes or incentives. You can use growth and inspiration. All three are going to work in their own way, but all of them come with consequences. And I'm sure people see dogs who are wearing e-collars and prong collars that they're obedient, right? They do what their owner says. But it comes with a consequence. Only one of those is going to give you the connection with your dog that you really crave. And I'm sure we can all remember leaders who inspire us and reward us for growing and becoming more. We can still see their faces or hear their voices and feel how they made us felt. And now for me, dog training is about how do I want to be remembered? Because at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing. Is like, it doesn't matter if you get a result if it doesn't leave a good taste in someone's mouth. So for me, at least, and that's not everyone's belief, some people are just results oriented. And I understand it's more about the journey of who you become, transforming to becoming a dog trainer and understand how to communicate to your dog. So the thing I always leave people with is when you get furious, get curious. That is the name of my new puppy. She's 8 months old. Her name is Curiosity. So just so I remember to stay curious. And that leads us into kind of what does that mean, right? And so that means for Bumblebee, at first I said he had all these accidents. I trained him how to ring bells that were attached to the door to tell me he had to go to the bathroom. And I just used classical conditioning, Pavlovian conditioning, that I put out the bells, he hits the bells, and then I give him a treat. And at first it was just like bells, treat. And then I use some shaping to get him to raise his paw. So I teach people, most dogs know how to shake, but not every dog knows how to shake.
Right.
So I first teach the dog how to shake, and then I'll put the bells in my hand, and then they'll hit the bells. And then I'll reward them, and then I'll hang them on the door. And for the first week, I just hit the bells every time we go out to go potty. I don't ask them to do it. I do it. And we hit the bells, we go potty. And then the second week, I'll stand by the door and I'll wait to see what they do. Have we built enough value for you to hit these bells? Most of the time we have. And then they hit these bells. I'm like, okay, let's go potty. So we associate these things together, and then we shape them together using grandma's rule. And grandma's rule, I don't know if your mom or grandma is like this, but mine was, if someone knocked on my door and they're like, is Brady home? Can you come play? My mom would look at me and she goes, is your room clean? And if it was clean, I'm good. But if it wasn't clean, she goes, how are you going to play with your friends if your room's not clean? I go, dang, you got me. And it wasn't her punishing me. It was me being like, Brady messed up because Brady didn't have his room clean, you know? So that transfers that. Now we're talking about elegant leadership in a way. So setting these things up with the dog of like, you have to sit at the door before we open the door. And like, first you got to teach him how to sit, obviously. And then you practice like waiting and holding position. And now you got a release now. And so these are some of the ideas that I use to start transforming and giving the dog confidence, because as soon as the dog understands, like they have to sit for the door to open, it becomes very easy for them to communicate. Like, I want to go outside. Like, I just sit at the door. So it's as the communication grows, the relationship grows, and as the relationship grows, you can do more and more things.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I can definitely see how that would work well.
Yeah, no, it works brilliantly. And it takes a little bit more time, obviously, and you have to condition things like going to the gym. You can't go to the gym for 2 weeks and lift weights and you can get strong, but then if you stop going to the gym, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
So you have to train and condition these things until it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And then like have fun while you do it, because this is a relationship. It's more,
Yeah.
when you think about a relationship, it's not about the ship. It's not about the end result. It's about the relation
Right.
to getting to the ship, you know?
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So what have you found in the people that you've worked with trying to transform their dogs from the wild and crazy dog to the passive, not passive, but the dog that knows what to do, when to do it, and is still having fun living with you? What's been the most challenging, I guess, in some of the, I guess, people you've helped?
Yeah. One dog that comes to mind is Fuchsia. Fuchsia was a client I had like 3 years ago or so. And when this dog came to me, she was a little bit aggressive. She didn't really like other dogs. She didn't really like people. She didn't like playing with toys. She would tug on her leash, but like that was it. She wouldn't play with a toy with you. And food, she was quite picky about what food she would take. So it was a little bit interesting, like where do you even begin? Because you need leverage in order to start helping the dog. But first you need to connect and appreciate the
Yeah.
world. So you need to kind of find out where this dog lives and kind of see what's triggering her, what's going on. And so I asked to go over to this person's house. And so when I got over there, the first thing that I noticed was that, and I come from a big family and our house was destroyed all the time, but I walked in this house and it was really cluttered and like tightly packed. And I was like, even this makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And my house was messy growing up.
Mm.
And so everything was tightly packed. So there was cats there and she also didn't get along with the cats.
Yeah.
And so when they would walk past each other, it was really tight. And sometimes I would start a fight, or at least someone growling at someone.
Right.
So then the next thing was, one of her favorite games was when they would go outside, they would chase her around the yard. She would grab her toy and then they would run and chase the dog around the yard, which looks like a lot of fun and connecting with her, but it doesn't necessarily teach her how to come to you when you call her. It actually
Exactly.
teaches her the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cats, like I mentioned, they wanted her to get along better with the cats, but she's really picky with food. And one of the first ways I train dogs and other animals to like each other is typically with treats and associating something that they like to this animal. Like, see their face, get something good, see their face, get something good. But my normal treats weren't working. So these are some of the problems we were dealing with. And so one of the first things we did, we started cleaning. And luckily, I love cleaning. Coming from a messy family, what turned into me is like, I like to clean.
Yeah.
And so we started organizing the house and we made sure to set up an area where she had her own space. And that meant like feedings could be separated because they were kind of all doing them in the kitchen at the same time, but give them a little bit of space, some like personal space. And then the when they passed each other, there wasn't as much tightness, right? They could pass each other with a little bit more like arc as they passed each other, which is more natural to them. And then in the backyard, we started training how to come when called. So we would run out there and then she immediately would run away from us and we would call her. She wouldn't come back. So then we would just run inside, shut the door and just like start having a party inside by ourselves. And then she would run to the door and be like, what are you guys doing? Like, why am I not invited? And I'd be like, oh, what's up? We'd open the door and then she would turn off and run away because that was her pattern. And then we would shut the door and we started partying again. After 4 or 5 times of this, she's like, I want to join. And then she started hanging around us more. So then we started her chasing us. So this is all to tell you that dog training encompasses more than just dog training. Sometimes I like to think of them as rituals or routines that you can build into your day. And even if that's like keeping your house a little bit cleaner and having a day where you clean and making sure that they have their own space and making sure that the games you're playing are helping you towards your goals and not taking you further away from your goals. Oh, and the cats, right? she likes tuna a lot. So we got some tuna, which is super duper high value. And so we started associating, like when you see these cats, like you get a bite of tuna. When you see these cats, you get a bite of tuna. And sure enough, giving them their own space and then pulling out the tuna like once a day at a special time, like they started just like hanging out. They knew when the time was coming and they both would go to that space and they'd be like, okay, it's time for tuna.
Oh,
Right. And so
wow, that's awesome.
they built it back together. And so that's one of the most challenging things that I did. And rituals are opportunities for transformation. And so if your audience is listening right now, you can ask yourself, how can you create more harmony at your own home? How can you make this situation better? And start thinking about what you could do.
So if you do, and I think I know the answer to this just from my dogs and cats that I have, but
Yeah.
how important is your mindset to be positive and fun-loving and also empathetic to your cat or dog? How important is that rather than just, I'm the trainer, I'm the alpha, I'm the boss, and this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to do it? How important is it that you kind of, as you said, build those habits, but in a way that makes the pet feel loved?
I will go back to the first story I told. My dog still sometimes, when he sees a bigger person that resembles my first roommate, he still growls at the person. And it goes back to, how do you want to be remembered? And getting a result. There's more important things than getting a result. The result's important. And don't get me wrong, being positive is important. But at the end of the day, you can appreciate the suck. You can embrace it. You can like say it as it is. Don't say it more than it is. Don't say it less than it is. Say it as it is. My dog isn't coming to me when I call him and it makes me angry. You know, it makes me sad because we spend so much time together at home and he still doesn't want to come back, or she doesn't want to come back. And I'm afraid if they don't come back, they get hit by a car.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry because I'm not doing enough training and I'm not relating things in a way that's working, because it's not working out in public right now. But I love you and I want to continue working on these things. And sometimes just going through those emotions and seeing them for what they is really important. Now, transformative vocabulary is also very important. The words that you use are your experience.
Yeah.
So some of my clients, when I first meet them, they're going to say like, this dog is frustrating me. They're stubborn. They're stupid. They don't know how to learn, or like all these other words that my parents called my dogs too. Like, they're just morons. And I was like, no, they're goofballs, right? They're curious. They're interesting. And I was working with a teacher and her dog, we clicked the clicker and the dog was afraid of the clicker, right? And it just makes like a sound. It's not that loud, but some dogs are afraid of it. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting behavior. And then she just laughed. And then she's like, I'm going to start saying that to my kids when like at school, when they do something that's weird, they're like, oh, that's an interesting behavior. Like, how can I utilize this or like make this better in some way? And just seeing the behavior as it is, but not judging the person or the dog behind it. The person or the dog, they're a good person. The behavior, though, it may not be a good pattern. It may not be a sustainable pattern. So
very true. Very true.
Yeah.
And you talked about, that dog remembering the shape and the size of your roommate and the experience that they had. And a lot of us do take on foster dogs. And I think it's really important to understand that the dogs do remember. They do remember. And a lot of times we don't know what was their trauma that,
Yeah, we can dive into that a little bit, because I worked at this farm animal refuge, and this pig I taught how to paint was terrified of people. She was a very bad situation, hated people, hated other pigs. Now she loves people and she loves other pigs. She has a bunch of friends. She's got a boyfriend. So we can dive into it, and I can share what I do for Bumblebee if there does come a moment where he would growl at someone. I think that's important for your audience to know what to do, because these are conditioned emotional responses, and emotional responses are different than training a trick or a new behavior in a sense.
Right.
These are this is some baggage, if you might add, right? So before we talk about this, I like to share how the dog's brain works, because people are like, dogs don't have that good of memory, right? They have super short-term memory, right? But then how do they remember these things for long term? It doesn't add up. So I'll explain why it adds up. So when I worked at Apple, they taught me this very cool way to remember for computer storage, and our brain works very similar. We have our solid state, and then we got our RAM, our processor. So you can think about it like your kitchen. So you have your refrigerator, and then you have your counter space. Some people have bigger refrigerators, smaller, and some people have more counter space, less counter space. There are two different types of storage. Your refrigerator can hold a lot of things in it, but you can't put everything on your countertops. You only can work with so much when you're making a sandwich. Some people have bigger counters. They have bigger processing information. So if I ask you to write your name in cursive, and I ask you to stay on the line and write it in the same, and then write it in cursive, those are three different things, and that requires processing power. That requires your countertop space. Now, dogs have pretty big refrigerators, but they have small countertops. So if you ask a dog to, if you're training them how to stay on their bed, and you're also moving away from them, and you're also adding in distractions, that's too much stuff going on for them to process. Like their brain just can't, it's overwhelmed for them. But if you teach them how to stay on their bed first, and then once they understand how to stay on their bed, then you start moving away from them. And then once they understand those two concepts, then you start adding in distractions, bigger and bigger distractions, and you do all those three separately at different times. Your dog will know how to stay on their bed while you're away with distractions forever.
Awesome.
So that's kind of how the brain works when you're going through these things. And I say all this because dogs have a ton of opportunity to learn a lot of different things. The average dog can learn 165 words. So it's really finding what you want your dog to do in those moments. So becoming very clear on what you want, how it's going to improve your life. And then the techniques or the principles that you use behind it, that's where you go out and find a mentor or a guide. And I won't get into all those details right now, but that's kind of the background of how I think about it. Did I answer your question?
Cool. Yeah, it's really true. You know, as I said, my last dog, she was crate trained because she was in an apartment. And so when I brought her home, I had forgot something and I opened my front door, and my previous dog, which was a chocolate lab and I love, but every time the door opened, she thought it was time to go run to the yard. And so with this dog, she just looked out at the door at me, even though the door was open. And then whenever she did go out and play in the front yard, if I said, while we're in the front yard, go to your crate, she went to her crate every time. And it was just such great training. And she, you know, she never cried or whimpered or anything, you know, and that's how, you know, I want all my dogs to react and to be loved and understand how to do things. Sometimes it's a little bit more challenging. I had one dog that was only 6 months when we got her, but she was a mixed breed that I think were breeds that should have never mixed. And some trauma she had was with men, and she would, if a man walked into the room, she would jump, and she was a small dog, she would jump up and bite them where you don't want to be bit. And it was really difficult to get her to be broken of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where it comes into training an incompatible behavior. So for Bumblebee, I was talking about how it fixed the growl. I remember where I was going with this now. If he sees someone, and I think it could trigger him, right? I'm gonna call him to me. I'm gonna touch his nose to my hand. I'm gonna give him a treat, and so I'm gonna see, like, when you see this person, you get a treat now. And so I'm gonna start associating these things, or playing with Tug. He loves to play with the ball or his, or a toy, so we'll play a game of Tug. Or sometimes I just give him some love, right? It's like, "What's up, dude? How you doing?" I'll smack his butt. He loves that. So for dogs that would bite someone when they come in the door, or even jumping on someone, they're very capable of running really fast somewhere and performing a behavior. They've demonstrated that. And then it's rewarding to them because they continue to do it. People and dogs only do behaviors that are rewarding, or they makes them feel better. So we need to give them something that makes them feel even better than what they're doing right now. That's the trick. Is like, no one's gonna give up smoking for a behavior that doesn't feel as good as smoking. You have to find something that meets that same level of needs right there. And so training them, what I train them to do a lot of times, when someone knocks at the door, that's the first trigger of someone coming over to the house. I train them to run to their beds, and they'll run to their bed. And then training them how to stay on their bed. Sometimes you start with your dog on leash, and you have two people doing it, and they're just rewarding their dog for staying there. And then the dog in the background, you're changing their emotion behind, like, oh, these people means I get a bunch of great treats, which is important. And that's where the emotion comes in, because that part takes a little bit longer, because you have to overcome a lot of the past things. But it is important to interrupt the behavior by giving them something that's even better than biting the person. Then you probably yell at the person yells, and then they don't want to see the dog. And so now the dog can go, because she probably doesn't like people. So she can go chill on her own space. She can be over there. Some people don't like people. That's okay. And in the background, I'm going to reward you. So over time, like, you're going to keep getting like a positive association, but you also get to feel safe, which is very important.
Yeah, very much so. So say you have somebody listening out there, and they love animals, they love dogs, and they think, I just really have such success with teaching my dog all these things. I'd love to be a dog trainer just like Brady. Talk to them about, what does it take to do that?
Yeah, what does that take? There's different parts of it, because at first I had to learn how to train dogs really well. So if you've already got that down, like, great. The next part is building a website and finding a way to collect payments, or you can still use Venmo and stuff, but having a place that gives you an overview of your stuff, figuring out your pricing. Because at first I was charging $25 then. And I was even doing during the pandemic, where I was doing Zoom lessons. So you got to be able to adapt quickly to whatever the situation gives you. And then marketing, you have to ask for referrals. That's a huge one. Ask your current clients for referrals. I get a lot of clients from my clients. And then, I say stay away from Facebook ads and Google ads right now. They just cost so much money, unless you can pay someone who's an expert in that to fine tune everything. It ain't worth it, because I've wasted thousands of dollars.
Right.
And then speaking, that's a big one I'm doing right now, going on podcasts. So I paid a coach to help me with understanding how to speak and to go get stages. So I'm speaking at my first virtual summit, the Health, Wealth, and Wisdom Parents Edition, in a few weeks, and just continuing to innovate. And even when I moved to Austin, this just shows you how much I love what I do. I had to drive Uber until I built up my clientele. Like, I had a couple clients, but it's not enough to live off of. So I was driving Lyft. But in my Lyft, I use an opportunity for marketing. So every single car ride, I ask them if they have a dog, right? And then we're going to talk about dogs. I'm going to share these stories and these tips. And like, oh, that was valuable. And I got some clients that always have cards, and I hand out my cards. And so I was like, well, I'm at least going to make sure that I'm building this in the background and planting seeds. So you're always got to be planting seeds, and understand that things don't grow right away. You have to plant seeds, and then you have to take care of them. And you reap what you sow.
And that's true for business of any type, For
Yeah.
sure.
And
Always,
if you
always.
want help with this too, I'm looking to expand. I'm partnering with a couple nonprofits to help veterans to have support dogs to get them through
Oh,
things.
nice.
And I'm doing the math with how many people we're going to reach. And there's a lot of needs to partner with rescues and to save
Mm,
these dogs. And there's a ton of great dogs in rescues. And if you know what you're doing, you can turn them around and like give them to someone. A lot of them are very kind and nurturing because they've been abused a lot of the time. So they
right.
understand what that feels like and they don't want it to happen again. So you've got to build back their confidence, make them feel safe. But it'd be a great combination. But I was like, I need a lot of other people to help me. So if there's people out there listening, you can send me a DM on my Instagram
Oh,
that just says
yeah.
dog trainer. And I'd be happy to share some information with you.
That sounds awesome. So we're kind of running out of time, but how do you balance? I mean, I guess you're going to people's homes. I remember some of my friends that were dog trainers, and you went and they had like 15 or 16 dogs, and you went to their house and it was like potty training going on everywhere and all this. How do you maintain a separation between your dog training and your life?
That's a great question. Currently, I'm on my weekend, so I just finished up a 2 week board and train with two dogs. I dropped them off on Tuesday and Wednesday. So yesterday and today have been like my Friday where I've just been doing things that I enjoy. I like
Mhm.
podcasting, and I had a lesson today. I didn't have any yesterday, but tonight I'm gonna go hang out with some friends, and
Nice.
I have some stuff scheduled. So scheduling things to be excited for is important. So you have something to look forward to. You know why you're working. That's very important. And then also knowing, like I like Eckhart Tolle a lot, and understanding that like I am not a dog trainer. I am much more than a dog
Yeah.
trainer. And I put on these hats, and you have to be able to take off these hats. And sometimes I go over to friends' house or people's with dogs, and it is very interesting because I observe my own behavior and I want to train this dog to do certain things. And I have to be like, stop, like talk to the people and like take off that hat. You're not a dog trainer, you're a friend right now. And separating these things is important. And then also like your vocabulary, we spoke about it earlier. I don't have to, I don't want to, I get to dog train. I understand that like I worked at a bunch of different places. I like being my own boss. I work harder now than I did in
Yeah.
any of these other places. And I've been burnt in many different ways that I've learned to recover from. And it's that as you do hard things, it becomes easier, but you have to
Yeah.
search out for those hard things. And we all got problems. I want everyone to know like everyone has problems. The only people who don't have problems are people in cemeteries. Problems are a sign of life. We
Yeah.
just want better and better problems.
Yeah. And just like the dogs, it isn't in our businesses and in our lives, it isn't something that happens overnight. Your dog is not going to be wonderful overnight, and your business is not going to grow overnight. It takes
Yeah.
time and persistence and building those habits. A lot of the things that Brady's talking to us about in how we're training dogs to be good dogs and building that relationship is also important in our business. To build the relationship, take time, use
Yeah.
words that are empowering, and to be able to be patient with. So, and I love too that you observe the situation before you attack it. Sometimes
Yeah.
we as entrepreneurs think we're going to just attack the problem. We know the answer before we really observe and understand the whole situation. So great
Yeah.
advice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Way to summarize that for us.
So it is time now for me to share my contact information for Brady. You know the drill. If you have not been taking notes and you want to grab a paper and pencil or pen, please do so now. I'm going to share my screen with the contact information. So the website for all of you that are just listening is www.info.newdirectiondogtraining.com. That's and Instagram are ND Dog Training. That's ND Dog Training. And YouTube is at ND Dog Training. I'm going to turn it over now to Brady to talk to you about his call to action and what you'll find when you go to the website or his favorite social media.
I love it. Thank you so much. So I'm doing a few things right now for people who are going to follow. On my Instagram and TikTok, I'm training my 8-month-old dog how to ride a skateboard. That was always a dream of mine. And what you write, you invite. So that seed is planted, and now she's training to ride a skateboard. So I'm sharing that journey every single day on those. And if you give us a follow, I'm going to do a push-up with her on my back for every follower that we get. And then for people who want to dive more into like resources, if you send me a DM on Instagram that says Dream Dog, and I'll send you my Dream Dog PDF. If you want to be a dog trainer, send me a DM that says Dog Trainer. And then last thing I'm doing for people to bring people together is I'm starting a book club. I love reading. One of my favorite books is called Don't Shoot the Dog. And it's a brilliant book. It goes over all sorts of different leaderships and how it applies to life, right? Because there's lots of ways. I train myself, guys. If you guys don't understand this, like I like jujitsu and getting beat up for a reason because I trained myself to like it. So starting a book club, if you want to join that, send me book club and I will help you out there as well. ND Dog Training.
That is so cool. All right, everybody. He gave you a lot of great insight and inspiration to reach out and find out more so that you can maybe be the next dog trainer with him or just learn how to train your own dog. But again, the website is newdirectiondogtraining.com. Well, Brady, it's been great chatting with you. I just love dogs. I just love dog stories, and especially whenever they let us know that there is hope for us to have a wonderful, wonderful companion. There is nobody that gives you better love than a dog. And my cat's over here. He's probably going to argue with me a little bit. But the best thing in the world is my dog and my cat loved each other the whole time. So there is awesome. Hope for. All right. So everybody, as always, I remind you that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.